In 2009, a developer bought a damaged building 2 blocks from ground zero and announced plans to build a Muslim community center. America said no. So he pivoted. Luxury condos, world-class architects, $219 million in financing. The tower rose to 43 stories and then stopped. The glass is still only 2/3 installed. The crane is still attached. And nobody, not the banks, not the lawyers, not even Michael Dell, has been able to finish it. The address is 45 Park Place, Tribeca, 2 blocks from ground zero. That detail drives everything that comes next. On September 11, 2001, when United Airlines Flight 175 struck the South Tower, part of the plane's landing gear and fuselage came out the north side of the tower and crashed through the roof of the building at this address, tearing through 2 of its floors and destroying 3 floor beams. The structure survived but was badly compromised, and for years afterward it sat vacant, one of those lower Manhattan buildings the city quietly moved on from. In July 2009, a Brooklyn-born developer named Sharif El-Gamal bought it for $4.85 million through his company Soho Properties. El-Gamal had been attending a mosque a few blocks away and knew the neighborhood well. Together with Imam Faisal Abdul Rauf, he developed the plans into something specific: a 13-story Islamic community center called the Cordoba House, named after the city in medieval Spain where Muslims, Jews and Christians coexisted for centuries. A large public gathering space open to the whole neighborhood. Within months, the whole country was arguing about it. By the summer of 2010, Cordoba House had a different name in most of the country. People were calling it the Ground Zero Mosque. The controversy was entirely about location. 2 blocks from the World Trade Center site felt, to a lot of Americans, like a deliberate provocation. The attacks were 9 years in the past, but the wound was nowhere near healed, and this project landed right in the middle of that. Sarah Palin took to Twitter to call it an unnecessary provocation. Newt Gingrich compared it to Nazis putting up a sign next to the Holocaust Museum. Rudy Giuliani called it a desecration, while Mayor Bloomberg delivered a full public speech defending the developer's right to build. The local community board voted 29-1 in favor, though none of that cooled the national argument. Protests broke out in the streets of Lower Manhattan. The debate ran on cable news for months. National polls showed most Americans were against it, yet those same polls showed a clear majority also believed the developers had every legal right to proceed. The country had managed to land on both positions at once. What killed it in the end was money. The controversy had made fundraising nearly impossible. Any donor willing to back the project had to be willing to attach their name to one of the most radioactive addresses in the country, and most of them walked away from it. By 2011, the partnership between El-Gamal and Imam Abdul Rauf had broken apart. The cultural center was dead, and El-Gamal was left holding a very complicated piece of land with no way forward. In 2014, El-Gamal came back with a completely different idea. He was going to build luxury condos. A glass tower at 45 Park Place, 50 units, priced above $3,000 per square foot. He also bought the adjacent lot at 49-51 Park Place from Con Edison that year for $10.7 million. And on that parcel, he kept a smaller cultural piece alive, a 16,000 square foot Islamic museum, 71 feet tall, to be designed by Jean Nouvel, one of the most respected architects working anywhere in the world. The tower design came from Michel Aboud of Soma Architects, with Ismail Leyva Architects as residential architect of record, and Italian designer Piero Lissoni handling the interiors, his first New York commission. The building was designed to be slender and precise, with delicate lattice mullions and a curtain wall that would catch light differently depending on the angle. 667 feet, taller than the Space Needle in Seattle and visible from the Hudson River waterfront. Nowhere near super tall territory, that threshold sits at 984 feet, but for a neighborhood built mostly at 10 to 20 stories, it was going to be impossible to miss. Some full-floor residences were being listed well above $3.8 million. El-Gamal was projecting a total sellout somewhere around $450 million. In May 2016, he locked in $219 million in construction financing, $219 million for 50 apartments. That works out to roughly $4.4 million per unit before a single piece of furniture went in. And that was just the construction debt, not the land, not the architects, not the interiors. The loans were structured under Islamic finance principles, a system called murabaha, where the lender purchases assets and resells them at an agreed margin rather than charging conventional interest. Real estate lawyers in New York had rarely seen anything quite like it. Construction started in 2017. For 2 years, things actually moved. The building went up steadily through 2017 and 2018. By the summer of 2019, the tower had topped out, the full concrete structure complete. Workers started installing the glass curtain wall from the bottom up, and with each floor clad, the building started looking, floor by floor, like it might actually get finished. Then, in late 2019, the general contractor, Gilbane Residential Construction, walked off the site without any public statement or explanation. The scaffolding went quiet. The glass installation stopped at about 2/3 of the way up and has stayed there ever since. A stop work order came down shortly after. That was late 2019. By April 2019, only 11 of the 50 units had sold. Al Gamal needed a full sellout to pay back the construction loans. With 11 sales, he had a fraction of what he needed. The money ran out. The 11 people who had already bought units weren't just disappointed. Their deposits were locked inside the same legal mess with no clear way out. What made everything harder was the way the loans were structured. Because they followed Islamic finance rules, there was no standard legal path to resolve the default. Courts had never dealt with anything quite like it. The usual moves didn't work. The bank tried to take the building. Al Gamal fought back and bought himself more time in court. Then the contractor came after unpaid bills. Then the subcontractors. Everyone was owed money, nobody could agree on who was in charge, and the building stayed exactly as it was. Think of it like this. You run out of money halfway through a home renovation. The bank wants to take the house. You refuse to hand it over, so it just sits there, unfinished, contested, while lawyers argue about who's actually in control. Nobody can sell it, nobody can finish it, nobody can walk away. Now scale that up to 43 floors in Tribeca, and that's roughly been what's happening at 45 Park Place since 2019. In 2022, an investment firm backed by Michael Dell, one of the richest people in the world, bought the debt on the building, hoping to cut through the mess. 3 years later, they were still stuck. New lawsuits kept arriving. New disputes over who had the authority to make decisions. A court-appointed manager whose sign-off was required before anything could move. By 2025, Dell's team had brought in a more aggressive legal firm. It didn't matter. Every path led to the same wall. That crane has been sitting there since 2019, billing every month, going nowhere. The construction fence has been blocking the sidewalk for 10 years. The constraint here was never money. Nobody has found a door. 6 years of legal deadlock, and the only person to actually touch this building was someone who wasn't supposed to be there at all. In September 2024, a graffiti artist known as Rams rappelled from the concrete pinnacle at the very top of the structure and tagged 3 faces of the building with spray paint, hundreds of feet above street level, while an active stop work order was in effect. The lawyers were still filing, the crane was still standing, Rams just didn't care. The lot right next door tells a quieter version of the same story. When Al Gamal pivoted to luxury condos in 2014, he kept one piece of the original vision alive, a 16,000 square foot Islamic cultural museum at 51 Park Place, designed by Jean Nouvel, a Pritzker Prize winner, one of the most respected architects in the world. A genuine cultural institution on one of the most historically charged addresses in the city. As of 2026, that ground has never been broken. The parcel sits vacant. In 2023, that lot was also pulled into foreclosure, a separate $7.5 million debt Al Gamal couldn't service. The site that was supposed to carry the cultural legacy of everything this address went through is now caught up in the same trap as the building next to it. 2 lots, side by side, one with an unfinished skyscraper frozen at the 2/3 mark, one with absolutely nothing on it, both tangled up in court, both going nowhere. This address spent years at the centre of a national argument about religion and the memory of September 11. That argument faded, a real estate deal moved in, the real estate deal fell apart, and the courts took over. The crane is still bolted to the side, the concrete is still open to the sky, and somewhere out there, a lawyer is still billing for all of it. Nobody knows how this ends. So here's the question. What actually happens to a building like this? Option 1. Someone wins the legal fight, finds the money, and finishes it as the luxury tower it was always meant to be. 50 condos, $3,000 a square foot, exactly as designed. Option 2. The whole thing gets torn down. The legal knot never unties, the costs keep piling up, and eventually someone decides a hole in the ground is worth more than a half-finished skyscraper. Option 3. The city steps in, forces a resolution, changes the use, converts it into something the neighborhood actually needs. Which one do you think happens? Drop it in the comments. And if you want more MegaBuild stories, subscribe. New videos every week. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.